Yeah, I'm Folkert Asselbergs. I'm a consultant cardiologist, and I've got a joint position between the University College London, the Institute of Cardiovascular Science, and the Department of Cardiology of the University Medical Center in Utrecht in the Netherlands, where I'm a professor of precision medicine at both sites. I think if you look at all the AI and the machine learning, what we see in our own smartphones and in the commercial industry, is that that's not applicable yet to healthcare because it's too complex. If you look at the different data sources, if you look at how we collect and extract data, it's much more complex than if you have like Facebook, you have one platform that you can extract data from. Because we have all these kind of different data sources. So I think the main hurdle is that we need to speak the same language. Right, so now it's apples and oranges that we compare. So if hospital X is doing completely something different than hospital I regarding data collection and how they define data. So it's hard to combine these data sources, it's hard to extract. A lot of it is still in free text just what the doctor is writing. And these are the most important components, right? This is the complaints of the patients, it's the reasoning of the doctor that's in the free text, and there are some text mining tools to get this data more structured, like we have here with Cockstack. But I think everybody's doing his own thing now. Everybody's using his own software and data mining techniques. So it's hard to compare. Well, we need to take advantage of the big numbers, right? We cannot solve this as a single center or as a single investigators. We have to do this nationwide and preferably international as well. So we have to make sure that the algorithms that we produce are valid in all kind of different settings, right? Depending on your background, depending on your sex, depending on your ethnicities, comorbidities, but also the environmental factors which differ, of course, per region, but also per city and per nation. And I think that's the big challenge. So how do we get the whole international community speak the same language? So adapt to one language so that we can easily compare and pull together the data so to develop these algorithms and finally get all this fancy stuff that we're doing to make money, can use it really to improve healthcare. I think that's the main problem now, right? So we have all these fancy tools and we can really target people with Amazon. People know what book you like better than maybe your friends, but it's not appropriate in healthcare, right? So while what we're trying to achieve here is like a digital twin, right? Find someone who's completely similar as you and see what happens if you provide a certain drug, or whether you lose weight or stop smoking. What happens to your risk? What happens to your risk for cardiovascular disease, but also what happens to your risk for other diseases, right? We think only cardiovascular, but this is also relevant for oncology, neurology, for every disease. So we have to think bigger. So how we get the community together on the same page. And I think that BHF has an important role in this because they can steer the public discussion, but also prioritize funding to those consortia that aim to collaborate, right? So we have to open up the society. We have to make sure that data is easily accessible, that we can easily use each other's data to develop algorithms. And I think one thing that is happening nowadays is we used to think, okay, we need to share data. Let's pull all the data together. But I think that will be tough, especially in routine world data and privacy concerns. This is actual data from real patients. So it will be difficult, it always will be difficult to share those data. And I think we need to move to a system that we can move the code, so the algorithms, to the data itself. But you have to make sure, if I give you the algorithm, that of course that it connects to your data. So the metadata, so how your data is defined, right? How you code data needs to be similar across. So I think we have to push that agenda instead of focusing on data sharing, which will be difficult for people, right? But also for institutions. We have to think of a new paradigm, is to move the code to data and have some kind of generic cloud platform that we can easily deploy algorithms across different institutes, but also across maybe smartphone application that can run into your own smartphone, provide you feedback, but the data still remains within your own phone. There's a lot of discussion about electronic health records, so like physicians and patients see it as a burden, right? As an administrative burden, so we have to write everything down, what's already in our head, and it feels like a bit of a punishment, right? But I think we have to look at the other way. There are a lot of opportunities with all this data signed, all this electronic health records and data that's nowadays available. Of course, randomized clinical trials have been in the area of pharmaceutical industries so far, right? But relevant clinical questions that we encounter day to day, right? It's hard to study, right? Because these clinical trials are expensive. So my colleague, my peer is doing A, while I'm doing B, right? And we don't know whether one is better than the other. There's no evidence, but it's also hard to get funding to test those kind of hypotheses. So what we're trying to do now is build a platform that we can easily randomize within routine healthcare and trying to improve it by randomizing to specific strategies. So not maybe treatments, not pharmaceutical compounds, but strategies, right? So instead of 1.5 liter fluid restriction for heart failure patients, let's do 2 liters or do fluid free or maybe combined with salt restrictions. And it's now easily to do. If we can speak the same language and we can randomize throughout the different trusts and collect the data from our registries and our audit registries, then we can really change medicine. So one thing in precision medicine is the current state and how we can predict disease better. The other way is how we can improve it. And I think that will be the major achievement, I think, in the next decade. So precision medicine, one part is how we can predict disease. The other one is how we diagnose disease. So cardiovascular medicine and medicine in general, it's quite simplistic. So we describe syndromes. So we describe patients, their complaints, and we give it a name, right? Like for heart failure, it does mean, right, people have complaints, shortness of breath, edema, due to a structural heart disease. But it doesn't say anything about the etiology, about the genetic mutations, the epigenetic mechanisms that are finally responsible for getting this heart failure. So I think with big data we can really improve the taxonomy of diseases as well. I think oncology is much more advanced than we are in the cardiovascular field in characterizing their tumors. I think we need to do the same for cardiovascular disease. So instead of talking about heart failure, we call it like a laminopathy or a phospholamban cardiomyopathy, so that people know it's due to the genetic mutation, that certain type of gene, that this causes the heart failure. And then we can develop trials, perform trials specific for this subcategory of patients instead of just trying to treat everyone. Of course, that doesn't work, right? Of course, it works with big numbers, so more people benefit than don't, but I think there's still a lot of people who can benefit of other treatments as well. So main problem of data science is, of course, that we use routine collected data. So we're depending on the data quality by itself. Otherwise you get the common phrase garbage in, garbage out, and we're comparing oranges to apples, and that's not the way to go. So we really have to move and push the field to collaborate to make sure that we speak the same language. And I think the British Heart Foundation, with all the funders, but also the NHS, plays a major role in this, because this is bigger than an individual scientist, right? This is bigger than an individual institution. This is something that we really have to push from multiple angles. So together with the international community, including the Dutch Heart Foundation, British Heart Foundation, DZK, Le Duc, everyone, let's push this agenda so that we harmonize and standardize our data flow so that we can do proper science. I think precision medicine is here to stay, and I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities, but I think now we have to move the field and start harmonize, standardize our data and collaborate together.